Well, that is a lot of grinding I got to get done. But before I get really rocking on this batch, I'm going to put together a quick video for you guys on freehand grinding. I'm going to just kind of set the camera up and show you guys how I grind one of my Trekker T models, which is this one right here, okay? They're all oiled up. I've got them all surface conditioned on their flats, and all of these are getting stonewashed finishes. So I'm going to quickly kind of probably show you guys every step, belt progression, maybe throw a couple tips and tricks in what I'm doing to try to get things good and even. And yeah, I'm just going to set the camera up, let it rock, and we'll see how it goes. Stay tuned, guys. All right, so what I do to start is I use this little file guide that I made, okay, and it's just for getting a nice even plunge, okay? And then let's see if you can see, I've got my scribe center line in there, which you guys can do however you want to do it. And we're starting off with all fresh new belts on this batch. So I start with a 36, and then I go to an 80, and then a 120. And these are all getting stone washed finishes. So 120 is a fine final grit for this, well, for what we're doing today, I guess. These are all Red Label Abrasive ceramic belts. I'll put a link down in the description for these. It's the best belts you can get, so that's why I use them. I'm gonna strap this 36 grit belt on right now, and I can pretty much do, I've got about 10 knives to do or something. I can pretty much rough grind those primary bevels in with this 136 grit belt, probably on all these. As far as the finer grits, the 80 and the 120s, I might go through a couple belts or something on these knives. So I'm gonna move the camera in a little closer. I'm gonna start grinding. I'm gonna probably just stop and start and talk a little bit along the ways on what I'm doing and try to explain kind of the progression and why I'm doing what I'm doing. And this is just kind of the most asked questions when I always drop it in the end of these videos, what you guys would like to see. It's always about grinding. So I'm not the best at freehand grinding, but I can get by. So maybe you guys can pick up a few tricks. So let's get going. Okay, so for that first 36 grit step, I'm running the grinder wide open, and I'm just quickly hogging off material, okay? I'm making sure I'm keeping that nice and even, and just watch that every pass, check your evenness. And the edge thickness right now is probably at about 40 thousandths or so, okay? And that's where I'm at with the 36. Now you can see, let's see if I can show it real quick. It's somewhat even already, okay? The evenness right now isn't super important as far as your plunge or as far as your bevel evenness, okay? You're just really wanting to hog off as much material as you can, get that edge down before you switch up to that next grit. You can go to a 60 grit too if you wanted, but I always go to an 80. So we're gonna switch to an 80 grit right now. We're gonna slow the grinder down a little bit, and we're gonna bring that edge down, okay, to probably around 20 thousandths-ish with that 80 grit belt, okay? And we're gonna bring our bevels up pretty close to where we want them, all right? That's kind of the next step. Now, if you guys watched me there, I don't grind correct as far as, you're always supposed to grind kind of with your edge up, okay? And when you do this side, you flip it and you do this. For whatever reason, I've always ground, edge up like this and flip it, and I do edge down. And it's mainly just because I have so much more control with my right hand as I do with my left. And you should train yourself to use your left hand, do it edge up the whole time. Do as I say, not as I do. Okay, that's what I'm trying to say. So I'm gonna put a fresh 80 grit belt on, get that edge down a little thinner. I'm bringing up my bevel a little bit higher, okay? And I'm starting to kind of get that bevel where I want it and get my edge thickness where I want it with that 80 grit belt. Hey, this is my nice Red Label abrasive shirt too that I just got. Look, and I already caught it on fire. It got a big hole in it. Man, I'll tell you what, I just can't have nice things. Okay, let's go to the 80 grit belt. Okay, so we're kind of making some light passes with the 80 grit, okay? And I brought that bevel up quite a bit higher, and I've got my edge down a little bit thinner. It's probably at about 25 thousandths right now, maybe 30. I got to take it down a little bit more, but still I'm focusing on that plunge. And I'm also watching where my tracking is at on the grinder, okay? Wherever your tracking is at, that's gonna mess with your plunge, okay? And even when you have this guide on, if your tracking is off one way or another, it'll throw that off. So always watch where your belt is at on the platen, I guess would be a good way to say it. And you can probably see that every pass I make, I'm looking and seeing what I'm doing with every pass, okay? I'm not just kind of grinding and hoping it turns out good. You're watching what's happening depending on where you're putting pressure and what you're doing. And that's how you keep it nice and even, okay? And right now, it's actually looking pretty good. It's definitely gonna come up a little bit higher. Sorry, the lighting really shines off that, so it's hard to show, but you can see we're pretty even right now. Our edge thickness is pretty even. You constantly have to watch that as well, that you're not getting too thin in a spot. And like sometimes it's easy to get too thin right on that belly. And if that starts happening, start applying more pressure towards this side. And you can kind of feel it when you're grinding, and keep the pressure off the belly, get it more towards the spine, okay? So I'm gonna keep running this 80 grit. I'm gonna get the edge down a little bit thinner. I'm gonna bring my bevels up a little bit higher before switching to a 120 grit belt. Okay, so now that the 80 grit's done, all right, you can see where I'm at. Let's show the evenness here. It's pretty good as far as evenness goes. It's not perfect yet. And that's where you really want to refine it with this 120 grit belt, okay? I guess the main things that have taken a long time to figure out is freehand grinding takes a lot of practice. And like I've made hundreds and hundreds of knives, okay, over the last however many years. And it's not easy. It's still not easy to grind knives, okay? It still takes a lot of focus and patience, and you're just slowly working out all these different spots, and you'll learn from doing it how you need to put pressure and angle and all that stuff. It just comes from doing it. So that would be one really good tip, is just grind a bunch of knives, and don't keep making the same mistakes on knives over and over again. Try to figure out what's causing that problem. And it's all about pressure. And the other thing that's super, super important is fresh belts. I struggle with that a lot. Know when to put a new belt on, because it can get so frustrating trying to get things even with a slightly worn out belt, and you put a fresh belt on, you'll make a few passes, and bam, it's perfect. So that's one other really good tip that I can't stress enough, is use really good, clean, fresh belts, especially when you get to that 120 grit finish. Like I said before, these are all getting stonewash finishes. If you're going to go to a hand sanded finish or a full satin finish, definitely bring them up higher. And it's the same idea. It's kind of, once you get to 120, 180, 240, you're just doing a couple nice clean passes, even it up, refining that scratch pattern, and working from there. So I just strapped on 120 grit fresh belt. I'm slowing the grinder way down. I'm at about 30 to 40% power on the grinder, and that helps with mistakes. They're going to happen a lot slower, and you can really even things out, adjust things better if you slow it down and do it that way. So I'm going to crank this up. We're going to do some final finish passes on this, and I'm going to bring those bevels up just a little higher. You can see I've got a little too much belly here compared to this one's a little flatter here, okay? So that's all about pressure. I'm gonna apply a little more top pressure right here to try to get that to raise up a little bit, even it out, crisp that line up a little bit, and once you get higher in the grits, that's when these lines start getting a little crispier, I've noticed. So as far as edge thickness goes, right now we're probably at about we're about 15 thousandths, and I'm going to bring it to about 10 thousandths probably on this one. And you can see I'm nice and even, okay, right there. And that's due to having a good scribe line and paying close attention the whole time that you're not getting too far over one way or another. So let's crank this up and finish this knife up. All right, so that 120 is done. As you can see, I'm constantly, every pass, checking both sides, making sure they're even. That's at least how I do it. And this is all, take this all how you want it. This is not the right way to do things or whatever. This is how I do it. And hopefully you guys can learn something from it, take it and put it with what you already know. But I'm constantly checking that evenness. So let's see, that one there. There's that side, and there's that side. So we're nice and even. Good. Man, it's just hard to show. But my, plunge is nice and even there. My edge is all the same thickness. I always leave it a little bit thicker at the tip, just for a little more structure there. If, somebody dropped it onto the cement or something like that. But that's that, okay? Hopefully you guys learned something from this. I'm not sure if I gave you enough tips and stuff like that. If you have any questions, drop it in the comments below. Make sure you subscribe to the channel too. It's growing pretty fast, which is really fun. It just gives me something to do to break up the day. Like I said, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I've got 10 of these things to grind right now. So just making these videos kind of breaks up the day a little bit, and I enjoy doing it. So Like I said, drop a comment if you have any questions. If I didn't explain anything right, which is very possible, let me know. And also drop comments below on what you'd like to see in future videos, more grinding stuff, more handle stuff, more whatever you want to see, more just knife making talk in general, from a business kind of point of view. That could be something interesting as well. So, let me show you really quick. This is a Scout, it's all oily. But this is kind of my the stonewash finish that's going to be getting. It's all oily, doesn't look right, but. So, I've also got a video on doing that stonewash too. So, anyways, hope you guys have a good one. I'm going to go grab some lunch and come back out and see how many of these I can get done. Thanks for watching.